Coming up on a newscast, the UNSC held an emergency meeting over North Korea's ICBM launch. Efforts to hold Pyongyang accountable were hindered by China and Russia. The sister of the regime's leader denounced the session and criticized the council as having double standards. The OECD released its economic outlook report for next year. The global economy is expected to expand 2.2% with inflation high yet moderate. Families of the Itaewon tragedy victims held a press conference. They called for a sincere apology from the government, a thorough investigation into those responsible, and measures to prevent secondary damage. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The UNSC held an emergency meeting over North Korea's ICBM launch. However, no meaningful actions were taken due to China and Russia. Meanwhile, the sister of the regime's leader denounced the council. Min Suk-hyun starts us off.
The UN Security Council held an open meeting on Monday to discuss North Korea's latest intercontinental ballistic missile test. But the session again ended with the Council failing to reach a unified response. At the meeting, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said failure to take action has allowed the North to continue its provocations.
63 times this year, the DPRK has flagrantly violated Security Council resolutions and attempted to undermine the global non-proliferation regime. 63 times this year, the DPRK has shown an utter disregard for the safety and security of the region and a complete lack of respect to this council.
The U.S. ambassador stressed it was their 10th Security Council meeting of the year with no significant action taken against the regime's provocative actions, even despite 8 rounds of ICBM tests by North Korea this year. She also called out China and Russia for emboldening Pyongyang by preventing council action. South Korea's ambassador Hwang Jung-guk voiced similar concerns.
Mr. President, we have witnessed how the DPRK is fully taking advantage of the Council's inaction and divisions to build up its nuclear arsenal and promulgated its new law on nuclear weapons policy, which set the threshold for using nuclear weapons far lower than any other country.
South Korea's ambassador added that the long-time military exercises held by Seoul and Washington could never be an excuse for Pyongyang's illicit actions. Despite condemnation from most council members, China and Russia dismissed calls to hold Pyongyang accountable for its missile tests. The 2 veto-wielding members argued that the Security Council should not pressure the North and instead should play a constructive role on the issue to ease tensions. On Friday, North Korea fired a new Hwasong-17 ICBM in what analysts believe may be the first successful launch of the system. The new weapon is expected to have a range of up to 15,000 kilometers, which is far enough to hit the U.S. mainland. Seoul and Washington now say that the regime is ready for a nuclear test, which would be its first since 2017. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
The sister of the regime's leader denounced the UNSC meeting, criticizing the council for having double standards. In a statement carried by the Korean Central News Agency, Kim Yo-jong said UNSC took issue with the North's right to self-defense while turning a blind eye to the Seoul-Washington joint drills. She also slammed the joint statement by member countries, including South Korea, and argued it was an unfair attack on the communist state. Kim also warned that Pyongyang would take the toughest counteraction to the end. The world is scrambling to find out more about Kim Jong-un's daughter. Intel authorities believe the girl recently seen holding hands with the regime's leader is his second child. Experts believe unveiling her like this is thought out strategically. Han Sung-woo provides a deeper analysis.
South Korea's National Intelligence Service says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's daughter, seen recently holding hands with her father as he inspected the ICBM launched Friday, is Kim's second child, Kim Ju-ae. That's according to People Power Party lawmaker Yoo Sang-bum, who said Tuesday that the NIS explained to lawmakers in a closed-door intelligence committee briefing that her physique, thought to be big for a girl around 10 years old, matches prior information the intelligence agency had on her. According to the NIS briefing, Yu said, Kim Jong-un appeared with his daughter in a show of his determination to take responsibility for the security of the North's future generations, a view that experts on North Korea share as well.
Pyongyang is conveying the message that Kim Jong-un has secured the safety of the North's future generations and that he is looking after the security of the North Korean people as a whole, as the leader of a more patriarchal, authoritarian society.
Analysts also say their appearance in front of the missile conveys just how confident and relaxed the regime feels about its nuclear weapons program.
This time, because they have a capability of the at least so-called tactical nuclear weapon, they shown this capability for several times, more than 30-something the missiles launched in this year. So I think this reflects the confidence on their nuclear capability.
Yu also relayed that the National Intelligence Service sees it as likely that North Korea will indeed conduct a seventh nuclear test, which the NIS had previously predicted to take place sometime between October 16th and November 7th, between the Chinese Communist Party's 20th National Congress and the United States midterm elections. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The defense chiefs of South Korea and Australia met for the third time this year. During Tuesday's session, they strongly condemned Pyongyang's provocations. Yo-jong held talks with Richard Marles in Cambodia, and on the sidelines of an annual regional security meeting, the duo agreed the regime's evolving missile and nuclear capabilities pose threats to the peace and security of the region, as well as the international community. The ministers also decided to increase cooperation in defense and improve bilateral coordination. The OECD released its latest outlook report. The global economy is expected to grow 2.2% next year, with inflation high yet moderate. Shin Se-byuk helps us look beyond the digits.
The OECD says global economic growth will continue to slow down next year before it picks up again in 2024. In its latest economic outlook report, titled Confronting the Crisis, the OECD expects the global economy to grow 2.2% next year. This is the same as its interim report in September. However, the September figure was revised down from the June projection of 2.8%. This came as the OECD report reads, the world economy has lost its growth momentum. The prolonged Ukraine war has provoked a massive energy price shock that's not been seen for decades. And this is causing growth to slow and prices to skyrocket. However, there is a silver lining for the global economy. The Paris-based organization projects mild recovery for the global economy in 2024 with a forecast of 2.7%. Also, the OECD revised down headline inflation for the G20 countries. It slashes this year's outlook by a 0.1 percentage point to 8.1. and by 0.6 percentage points to 6% for 2023. The revised outlooks came despite high inflationary pressures due to the Ukraine war, largely thanks to the tighter monetary policies taken by major economies. The OECD says Asia will be the main growth engine, while all other regions are set to see very low growth. This came because Asian countries saw relatively low inflation and has had less impact from the Ukraine war. As for South Korea, the OECD says the country is projected to post growth of just under 2% at 1.8. It's down 0.4 percentage points from its earlier estimate. The organization attributed this to the economy losing momentum due to a sluggish housing market and weak private consumption and investment. To cope with the headwinds, it recommended the country keeps up the monetary tightening as it could help re-anchor inflation expectations. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Korean cultural content had been banned in China for around 6 years after Seoul deployed the U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD. Changes are finally being made by Beijing to resume online streaming of K-movies. That's according to Senior Presidential Secretary for Public Relations. Kim Min said it was no coincidence that the decision was made on the occasion of the recent summit between Presidents Yoon and Xi. She added the South Korean leader noted the importance of cultural exchanges during the summit, and his Chinese counterpart agreed. The families of the Itaewon tragedy victims held a press conference in Seoul on Tuesday. It was the first such session held since a deadly incident occurred on October 29th. Lee Si-hoo tells us more.
On Tuesday morning, the families of the victims of the tragedy gathered in Seoul for a press conference and asked the South Korean government to ensure officials are held accountable for the crowd crush late last month in Itaewon that led to at least 158 deaths, mostly young people celebrating Halloween. Around 20 family members of the victims were at the conference hosted by a group called the Lawyers for a Democratic Society, also known as Minbyun. The families first asked for a sincere apology from the South Korean government. They asked President Yoon himself to apologize, saying that he has a constitutional responsibility to protect citizens' lives and safety. The families said that those responsible for the incident must be held to account and that some are attempting to evade responsibility. They asked further that the investigations be conducted in a clear and transparent manner.
I, as a mother and our family, deserve to know why my son had to die. I ask for a thorough investigation so that no son or daughter on earth has to be victimized by such a tragedy ever again.
There were specific requests for follow-up measures by the government. The families asked the government to create more opportunities for the bereaved families to communicate with each other and to set up more memorials so that the public can continue to pay their respects. They said the government must also take action to prevent the blaming of the victims online. Minbyun, which is representing the families of 34 victims, said further legal action to be taken will be officially announced in the future. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Staying in Indonesia, to prevent a trucker strike, the government will temporarily extend minimum pay guarantees for this group. But the union, which is calling for a permanent extension, is likely to push ahead with a plan. Jong-un zooms in on the developments.
The South Korean government has strongly urged truck drivers to drop their plans to go on a nationwide strike on Thursday, which they say would affect the entire country and beyond.
At a difficult time now, the strike will freeze logistics and damage the entire economy on a national level.
It'll be the truckers' union's second strike of the year, calling for guarantees on minimum pay based on operating costs. Their first, back in June, prompted major production disruptions, which cost $1.2 billion. As a partial compromise, the government and the ruling People Power Party decided to extend the minimum pay guarantees for another 3 years. They had been due to expire in December. However, the government firmly refused the union's demand that the system is adopted permanently and covers more drivers.
We agreed not to expand the system to drivers in the 5 requested industries, like steel and automobiles, as they are relatively well paid, and that could increase logistics costs for the public.
The government added that over the next 3 years, it would assess whether the minimum pay system actually serves its key purpose of keeping truckers safe by preventing them from speeding and excessive working. So far, data suggests that the number of deaths and accidents among truckers went up since it was adopted in 2020. With truckers likely to push ahead with their plan regardless, the government will launch contingency logistics plans to minimize the fallout and vow stern punishment in case of any illegal activities. Jong-un, Arirang News.
South Korea will provide $500,000 worth of emergency aid to Indonesia to help with recovery efforts following the recent earthquake. Seoul's foreign ministry announced the plans and voiced hopes of providing the victims with needed assistance. The South Korean government pledged to continue offering humanitarian aid to countries suffering from natural disasters. Elsewhere around the world, Ukraine will begin voluntary evacuations from areas in southern regions as temperatures plummet and residents face a perilous winter. The government plans to cover all related costs such as accommodation, food, and medical attention. The minister in charge of the region's reintegration said local residents could struggle to survive without electricity, heat, and water because of infrastructure damage by Russian attacks. The WHO also warned the lives of millions will be under threat in the winter. Its regional director for Europe emphasized half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure is either damaged or destroyed, and 10 million are currently without power. Temperatures in the capital are already expected to hover around 0 degrees Celsius for at least 10 days. During Tuesday's cabinet meeting, a comprehensive plan to promote polar activities and research was approved here in South Korea. This includes building an inland Antarctic station, which would be South Korea's first and only the 6th in the world. Here's Kim Bo-kyung with the details.
South Korea is to venture deeper into the little-known polar regions by building an Antarctic inland research station and an advanced ice-breaking vessel. Such plans were approved during Tuesday's cabinet meeting. A candidate site for the station will be selected by 2027 before its construction is completed by 2030. Korea already has 2 Antarctic research stations, the King's Haejong Station, built in 1988 on King George Island, and the Changbogo Station established in 2014 at Terra Nova Bay. But this would be the first one that's inland. It would only be the 6th of its kind on the South Pole. The 5 others belong to the United States, Russia, Japan, France, and Italy together, and China. Inland research requires advanced techniques as there is a higher risk of cracks forming in the ice. The research is expected to lead to the discoveries of undetected organisms and reveal information about climate change in the past.
The 2 other stations are only able to do research near the coast. However, with this inland station using cutting-edge technology, we will be able to lead the inland research by drilling into 3,000-meter deep glaciers that go back to 1 million years ago and the lake that's under a 2,000-meter deep glacier.
Korea will also build the next-generation icebreaker in 2026 to help with joint global research on the Arctic Ocean at high latitudes. This will make South Korea the first Asian nation to conduct research of this kind. The icebreaker itself will cost around $204 million. It will weigh 15,000 tons and will be able to break ice that's 1.5 meters thick while traveling at 3 knots, which is around 5.6 kilometers per hour. And with this vessel, South Korea will lead the global joint research projects in exploring the Arctic Ocean starting in 2027. Other measures include developing an ultra-small satellite to observe the changes in glaciers in the North Pole region by 2025 and new medication products using biological resources from the polar regions. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
By the year 2025, 1 in 5 South Koreans will be 65 or older. Presently, that's around the average retirement age. But more and more seniors are looking to continue working past this phase. Shin Yeon sheds light on how employment could be the next best welfare policy for the silver citizens.
Every morning, Yoo-kwa is excited to come to school. It's been more than 60 years since she graduated, but she hasn't missed a single week here in the past 5 years. She's working at an elementary school cafeteria, serving lunch to students. Though some may think it'd be grueling for a 71-year-old, she says she's the happiest she's been right now, getting up every day knowing that she's needed somewhere.
선생님 오늘 안 힘드셨어요?
네, 안 힘들었어요. 괜찮아요.
그럼 어떻게 동기부여가 되시는 거예요?
아유, 재밌잖아요. 아이들하고 이렇게 같이 활동하니까 얼마나 재밌어요. 제가 원래 애들을 좋아했거든요. 그래서 손주, 손녀를 봤는데 이런 일거리가 있으니까 너무 좋더라고요. 애들하고 접할 시간도 많아지고.
This year alone, the Ministry of Health and Welfare has created some 845,000 job opportunities for seniors. Most work in social care or the public sector. But there are also some that land jobs at private companies as interns.
Those include Chung Myung-nan, who has been working for a scooter company since June. Her main responsibility is to move scooters so they don't get in people's way and to make sure they're parked close to one another for the next customer's convenience. Today, her superior is helping her out with any questions she has.
네. 이제 통행의 방해가
그렇죠.
되잖아요.
네.
이런 키보드를 이제 한 칸에다가 정리해 주시면 돼요.
네, 네. 제가 할게요. 네, 네.
Chung is happy with her new job, and the company is satisfied with her work.
As a company, we inevitably have to think about cost efficiency, and it turned out hiring seniors does more good than harm for us, especially in part-time jobs that not a lot of youngsters aspire to do.
Affiliated to the Ministry of Health, the Korea Labor Force Development Institute for the Aged has been actively matching seniors to different jobs.
The people we consider to be seniors are actually quite healthy and energetic. They also have an urge to be productive and use their years of know-how. Our institute is also aware that South Korea doesn't have the best pension policies for the elderly. That's why we're trying to provide financial support by expanding jobs for seniors.
As of 2021, only 3 out of 10 seniors had a job. The government is aiming to expand this number, especially in areas that require more professional experience and know-how. One way is by giving incentives to companies and changing societal perspectives so that people understand the benefits of hiring seniors full-time. 신예은, Arirang News.
November 22nd is Kimchi Day here in the nation. To celebrate the Korean soul food, a cooking competition was held in central Seoul. Kim Jong-sil takes us closer to the action.
People of different ages and backgrounds are eating kimchi. Last month, an advertisement by one of South Korea's renowned kimchi brands, Jong-un, could be seen at New York's Times Square. It was part of an event to celebrate Kimchi Day. New York isn't the only place celebrating kimchi. Here in Seoul, there's the 2022 Kimchi MasterChef Global Mentoring Competition.
The clock is ticking. The contestants have under 2 hours to come up with a 3-course meal, and each dish, even the dessert, must include kimchi.
The 8 foreign contestants are from countries including the US, China, and Japan. They paired up with winners of previous kimchi cooking seasons, all South Korean chefs. Each team tried incorporating foods from their home countries and developed their signature global kimchi dish.
The Chinese mentee and I went through several food lists and decided which food would best represent China while satisfying Korean palates.
I've been in South Korea for a long time, like 5 or 6 years. I really like kimchi a lot, so I consulted my mentor and I came up with dishes that combine kimchi with food from my hometown.
It's time for the final decision. Culinary experts from in and out of the country came to judge the dishes.
My goal has to check if the cooking that they are doing will appeal to a wide range of 외국인, of foreign people.
After careful consideration, the winners of the cooking competition were announced. The first place went to Team Vietnam with their Vietnamese rendition of kimchi dishes, including kimchi risotto and white kimchi millefeuille. The event ambassador, Professor Seo Kyung-duk of Seongshin Women's University, explained why the globalization of kimchi is something that's necessary.
It's important to inherit and develop traditional kimchi of the past, but developing fusion kimchi that fits modern times and reaching people around the world is also very important.
Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Temperatures will continue to stay warmer than average tomorrow. Conditions will get a tad warmer for Seoul, with maximum temperatures hiking up to 16 degrees Celsius. Mild spells will prevail for other regions as well, with readings about 4 to 7 degrees higher than the seasonal average. Relatively stronger rain bands are formed across the East Coast, dropping heavy showers. The East Coast will see heavy downpours overnight. The coastlines of Gyeongsang-Bukdo Province will see the most amount of rainfall, with up to 100 millimeters in the forecast. The rest of the East Coast can expect about 30 to 80. Keep in mind that these regions may see heavy downpours of 20 millimeters per hour overnight. Other inland regions will only see about 5 to 20 millimeters. Under rainy spells, Seoul will start off at 9 degrees and Daegu at 11. Daily highs in Seoul will get up to 16 degrees, Daejeon 15. Daegu and Gyeongju will be topping out at 17 degrees. For the remainder of the week, the capital region will see an alternating pattern of sunshine and overcast skies. Expect daytime conditions to get much colder this weekend. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.